Let's get some analysis from Mehmet Çelik. He's the editorial coordinator of Daily Sabah and joins us from here in Istanbul. Mehmet, good morning to you. After all the dispute over Türkiye buying Russian missile systems and the problems with the F-35 fighter jets, are we now back on course in terms of these two NATO allies, one with the biggest army in NATO and the other one with the second?
In principle, yes. In principle, this sale, I think, is a done deal now. However, there's still 15 days for the approval from the Senate and at the Congress. So whether or not some of these anti-Türkiye lobbies will be successful in actually turning this deal over, it is something that we should be seeing. We should wait and see. But in principle, this deal is a done deal. As it is not only, we shouldn't actually only look at this deal from a security and defense perspective, which will be contributing to not only Turkey's defense and security area, but it will also contribute to the NATO as a security bloc in the larger picture. However, this will also contribute to actually this building and reestablishing trust between the two very strong allies within NATO. So since this deal had many promises have been made by the US, and they have actually not been kept when it comes to its relations with Ankara. So if this actually fails in the next 15 days for one reason or another, it is going to put a really big dent in Turkey and in the US relations. Which is still a possibility, although it is a lesser possibility, but it still remains as a possibility in the next 15 days. Although in principle this has been, now I think it's a done deal. But there is pro-Israel, pro-Greece, and pro-Armenian lobbies within this anti-Türkiye pole that could affect still this deal. Although I don't see a bigger chance, because there's also the defense related or the sales of weapons lobbies that are also very influential when realizing and materializing these deals with other countries. So there could be still that discussion. However, with the very recent remarks we saw from the House and also the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, I think now it will be finalized, and it has become a very big roadblock in reestablishing the trust between Turkey and the United States. So once this is actually removed, we will go back to that phase where President Biden and President Erdogan had established at the Vilnius summit very recently in past year. So if that actually is removed, I think it will not only contribute to the U.S. Turkey relations, but it will also reestablish this coherence within NATO in the big geopolitical perspective as well, in the larger.
Mehmet, if you don't mind, I just want to pick up on that very point. Okay, I think you're completely right. It's really important to look at the bigger picture here. I mean, clearly, if Turkey gets these fighter jets and modernization kits, it will be beneficial to the Turkish military and the Air Force. But that bigger picture you're talking about, how much difference is it going to make if Joe Biden gets another 4 years or if Donald Trump returns in terms of Ankara's relationship with Washington and the security, the diplomacy, the politics, everything that these two nations need to do to work together?
Mr. Biden has a different approach clearly than Mr. Trump, but President Erdogan will be in the office for the next 4 more years until 2028. And Mr. Erdogan had good relations, actually a very leader-to-leader relationship with Mr. Trump in the last years of his terms. And recently, there has been that effort to normalize relations with Mr. Biden as well. And President Erdogan has a positive approach to actually maintaining this relationship with Mr. Biden or Mr. Trump if he gets elected. So Ankara's position is very clear on several issues. It wants to work within NATO. It wants to reestablish its ties on a clear ground with the United States, but it has very good reasons to hold back when it comes to security, particularly given the U.S. support to YPG, which is a direct threat to Turkey. So how these, regardless of Mr. Biden being elected or Mr. Trump being elected, how they will approach to this issue in particular, I think will be a determining factor on how the relations will turn out in the next presidential term. When it comes to NATO, for example, Turkey has a very clear position. It wants to provide security for all its members, and it wants to ensure that all the threats that come to one member should be sincerely actually confronted by all members. And this hasn't been the case. And whether in the previous term with Mr. Trump or now with Mr. Biden's term, it hasn't been a sincere approach against threats that Turkey has been facing. And NATO allies haven't been confronting these threats to ensure that Turkey is secured from them. In contrast, it has been, supporting a YPG terrorist group in northern Syria, which actually, it's a direct threat to Turkish sovereignty. So these conflicts are within the U.S. and within NATO, where Turkey has a clear position that it wants to positively contribute to NATO and it wants to reestablish its ties with Washington.
Mehmet, you'll notice I already made Donald Trump the Republican nominee for the presidential contest, but we're expecting that to happen. So thanks very much indeed. Have a good rest of the weekend, Mehmet Çelik.
Thanks, you too.